Dynasty the king.
For most of the entire calendar year, I am waiting for football to arrive. But after week 8, I might be at a place where fantasy is so frustrating that I'm almost ready for the offseason. Everyone knows I'm not competing in Yacht Club. I'm tanking for the future year. I do play in another league. I think we've mentioned it before, called the Dynasty Cartel. I needed 37 points between Jayhmer Gibbs and Jimmy Garoppolo. Jayhmer Gibbs not only pulled his weight, I lose by a single point on an over-tinkering start-sit decision, and it's nights like these that make me hate fantasy, because I would have been fine if Gibbs had sucked. He looked like a stallion on the field. The guy could not be stopped. 189 scrimmage yards. Jimmy G looked like a high school quarterback put into an NFL game, misses Davanted Adams on a wide-open touchdown. I am tilting hard. Dude, yeah, I'm just talking about the end of the game. Yeah. It was brutal. It was brutal. I'm in shambles. I'm upset because I'm not competing in many dynasty leagues. This is the one dynasty league I'm trying to go win a championship in, and I make the wrong start sit, end up with a terrible loss. Davis, you have been a Sam. You said from the start, Sam Laporta for sure was the tight end too. You didn't say Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah.
Please,
basically, sure.
Tell me what you enjoyed watching from this Monday Night Football game, because all I did was get my heart broken, and I'm gonna need a moment to recover.
Yeah. So first, I want to talk about Jimmy G. The way he plays football almost makes you feel bad for him. Like, you see him out there and you just have empathy. You have complete empathy and compassion to this guy just because he seems like he is so outmatched. Like, there is no reason that he should be on the field. And so, I mean, I feel you, Davanted Adams. I feel you, Josh Jacobs, and everybody else on that team that is probably infuriated with his performance.
Davanted Adams was you got him slamming his helmet after getting – oh, my gosh. That's funny.
Dude, but on the flip side, right, on the other side of the ball, it's great to see Jayhmer Gibbs do what he did. It's great to see him be explosive and to get the bell cow work. I mean, granted, yeah, Craig Reynolds got some carries, but, I mean, Jayhmer Gibbs was the guy. But at the end of the day,
touches.
31 touches.
This is the difference, right? So everyone was mad at the Lions at the start of the fantasy season. Our very first show, Davis, you brought up very correctly, hey, David Montgomery's not going anywhere, but I can get behind drafting a running back and then picking games where you're going to give them the workload they're supposed to have. Dan Campbell, I understand. You're resting your guys for when you need them. When Montgomery's in, you feed him. When Gibbs is up, you feed him. This is the opposite of the Arthur Smith problem. Like, it's not – I would have been so upset if Craig Reynolds had gotten more than 10 to 15 carries, but they featured their best player in Gibbs. Amon-Ra St. Brown did Amon-Ra St. Brown things, still had 100 yards, 6 catches. There's not a lot to talk about on the Lions offense other than Gibbs because he was such a shining star. But, Dylan, I want to ask you, Jakobi Meyers was someone you've touted. I believe you have him in Yacht Club, or have you traded him away?
I traded him away. Yes, I traded him away. But no, Jakobi Meyers, I mean, you can't say anything about the pass catchers in, I was about to say Oakland, and Vegas. Like, it's just like David said, Jimmy Garoppolo is just you know who Jimmy Garoppolo reminds me of? Mark Sanchez without the butt fumble. That's literally who he is. He got it done in a system offense and with a great defense, but it will amount to absolutely nothing else and probably not be a quarterback in the NFL after this year, question mark.
They've got him for a couple years.
How much money does he get?
Yeah.
I mean,
he signed a 3-year deal, but I don't know exactly what the contract looks like after this season. But I like Jakobi Meyers. I still am in on Jakobi Meyers. He's going to get receptions. They're going to have to throw the ball because they're going to be behind. So I still like Jakobi Meyers. And tonight was just awful, absolutely awful. You expect him to play at least a little bit better than that.
If Jimmy G, just so people understand, if he had scored 6 points, I needed him to throw for 150 yards. I would have won my matchup.
Bro, he did not complete a pass to a wide receiver until after halftime.
Dude,
after halftime.
That's a 3-year, $72 million quarterback right there for you.
It's baffling.
I don't feel bad for Jimmy G at all, Davis. I feel like he's literally he's the 14th member of Oceans. You know what I mean? From like, he's just ripping off teams. Like, he's
Oceans 14.
Yeah, he's Oceans 14, Jimmy G, like 3 years, $72 million. If I'm Davanted Adams, I am angry. Like, he came here to win. He came here to be with Derek Carr. And now it sounds like they're not going to trade him, which, speaking of
he's
trades,
probably hoping that the trade deadline was next week and not this week, because he would be forcing his way out. He's banging on the door like, get me out.
Bro, he's probably going to be there midnight tonight trying to get out of there, bro. He's trying. He needs to try at all costs. And if they want to do him at all, they need to just get rid of him.
Guys, I briefly just want to finish this out. You know, I know we've talked about a lot of Monday, but I'm so glad that I was right about Sam Laporta. I mean, I just had a feeling, and I'm glad, guys, that both Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid are probably going to emerge into that top 2 tight end in Dynasty. So it's like I was right, but twofold. And so, I mean, that
you were doubly correct.
I was doubly correct, basically. So, I mean, that feels really good. I know I wasn't here last episode to talk about the rookies, but I just want to be here and settle the debate. You don't have to pick Sam Laporta or Dalton Kincaid. You can just take them both and say that I was right. So
that's definitely what people should do. I will say this. I think Sam Laporta being this consistent, Dalton Kincaid's going to be featured more. We talked a little bit about that, but I think we have to be okay with the idea that tight ends can come in and be immediate producers for fantasy. I think that is the big takeaway, is that the whole rookie tight end era of these guys, the season's got to finish out. I think there's a changing of the guard because, you know, Dylan, speaking to your point about the Raiders not getting targeted, would you say to like the second quarter, the second half?
They didn't. Well, they didn't have a reception. None of the wide receivers had a reception until after halftime.
Right. That's right. Michael Mayer was one of the few, like, and I don't want to say jump started that offense because the offense never got going, but they did have one drive.
He caught a pass for 15 yards, a great catch, strong hands.
You know what Michael Mayer was? Michael Mayer was the black prong that you're trying to put on the battery, and then Davanted Adams was the red one that they just couldn't get to catch, and so the car never got started.
The car never got started. Yeah, all I'm saying is you're seeing rookie tight ends contribute more than we have historically. It is unique to see, but we talked about it. Davanted Adams definitely wants a trade, and with the trade deadline coming on, well, Tuesday, most likely when everyone's going to be reading this. By the way, also happy Halloween to everyone. We're going to be talking trades. Wanted to save a lot of time for that. So join us on the other end of this commercial break where we break down all the trades we want to see in both the NFL and the leagues we play in. First and foremost, happy Halloween to everyone listening today. We're releasing the show on Halloween. So in honor of that, we just wanted to ask a pretty simple question. And I want to start with you, Davis, because we've talked about you having a super team. We've talked about how well you've done building your team. We've unfortunately inflated your ego. But I want to know, with Halloween being today when people are listening, tomorrow as we're recording, what are you most afraid of for your team in the Yacht Club?
Well, to give a little bit of context, I just lost my first game, right? So,
loser.
And everybody cheers. I'm terrible.
We
I'm
did,
awful.
actually. The entire group chat was like, yeah.
I know.
And the league rejoiced.
I know. Everybody needs a bad guy. No, guys, what I'm fearing is the inevitable. I'm fearing that I'm always going to be a groomsman and I'm never going to be the groom. I'm always going to be a part of the wedding, right? I'm always going to be in the championship, but I'm just never going to taste the sweet victory. And it's because I think the good Lord up above is trying to keep me humble, right? And something that has become an idol, something that I invest way too much time into, something that I am too committed to. I just can never taste victory in it. And guys, I am tilting. And I don't know why I should be tilting because it's not like somebody got no loss. Dylan, what you have to understand is
your ego's that big.
It is that big. Yes. One, it is that big.
We knew that.
You already knew that. You're on the show with me.
I just wanted you to admit it, yes.
Twice there. Secondly, something that I do have to say is, that's what I'm fearful of. But that's also what makes this thing, fantasy football and dynasty football, so beautiful and brilliant, is that we exist and we play in this thing because of the pain that it brings and the joy that it brings, the elation when you have an amazing upset, and then the heartbreak that you feel when you do get upset by somebody else, and just the pain that I feel when I see in the group chat, everybody just dogging on me.
No, I gotta add some context here. Here's why I think it's your fear too. Who you lost to. I don't want to say it's your biggest rival by any stretch, because Dylan and I would jump in line to be first in that order. But
yes.
This is a team that is the opposite style of build from you. This owner has drafted and started. He's already won a championship, he has Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase, who I believe is who killed you in the championship the last time you appeared there. And when Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase found their form, oh, by the way, he also has CeeDee Lamb. That is legitimately a team that could go toe-to-toe with you. And he's drafted and developed for years. You built slowly over 1,000 trades. So it's like two different like philosophies on how to play Dynasty going head-to-head. Yeah. And for you to lose to him, listen, if this had been a one-off on a team that had players that couldn't repeat that kind of production, I think the fear is very real because you're going to have to face that team in playoffs to get a championship.
Here's what I'll say.
All the guys I just mentioned are superstars.
Here's what I'll say. We talked a couple episodes about CeeDee Lamb and does he have a Mike McCarthy problem? I'm going to say this was a one-off, and I'm not expecting 30-plus points from CeeDee Lamb every single week. Secondly, what I will say, the year that I lost to this specific person, the specific owner in the league, the year I lost in the championship, yes, I should probably have said that my biggest fear is Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow stack because it haunts me still to this day because they scored like a combined 90 points. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and it was when Ja'Marr Chase had like 3 touchdowns and 200 yards in like week 16 or 17. But I don't want to go there. What I do want to say is that year I had beat him twice in the regular season. Was 2-0 against him, and so it just adds context. No. It's good therapy that he beat me in this regular season. So maybe when we get to the postseason,
when's yours.
I'm immune.
This is exactly.
You guys. I feel so good now.
This is healthy because you're verbalizing your fears and you're trying to make them less big of a deal than they actually are.
I think
I know you're sweating.
I think what's scary about your loss is literally all of his players. I mean, honestly, I was a little nervous for his team because none of his players had really been performing. No one put it together. We knew about the Bengals' struggles. He also has Austin Eckler on that team. The one week he needed his team to pull it together, Eckler showed up, CeeDee Lamb showed up, Chase showed up, Burrow showed up. So it's going to be an interesting finish, and we'll keep you guys posted. But I can tell. You were in the chat so nervous. Oh, good game, bro. This is and the game hadn't even finished yet. So you're nervous. Not a good sport. You were sandbagging so hard.
A big proponent of the reverse jinx. It is a thing for all the fantasy football players.
The
reverse jinx is such a thing. It's such a thing.
We hadn't even gotten through the early slate of games before you were like, "Oh, good game."
Yeah, I don't want to give this sandbagger any more credit because, you're absolutely right. The moment CeeDee Lamb started, which was the early window, he's like, "I've lost. It's doomed to happen." Dylan, what's your biggest fear on this Halloween Eve, Halloween when people are listening?
My biggest fear is the yacht club. I'm in shambles. I am in absolute shambles. It seems like no matter what move that I make in the yacht club, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. This week, I played a team who had not broken 100 points all season. I had made some moves earlier. They were tanking. I had made some moves early in the week because I had no running backs, traded with Mike. I got some running backs. I was like, you know what? I got Darrell Henderson. I've got a decent team. Let me try to make a little bit of a push to make my pick not as valuable. Bro, these dudes come out and he has Sam Howell, who went off for 40 points. And then he also has Gus Bus, who went off for almost 30 points. It's like this dude hung 140 points on me. And I'm like, so ended up losing. Bro, the thing I really am scared of is I'm very scared of the yacht club this year because I'm in no man's land. I'm admitting it. I'm in no man's land. I'm in no man's land, and it's a scary place to be. It makes you question your existence in fantasy football as a whole, and that's exactly where I'm at. So if you guys could affirm me or something,
it takes a big man to admit that because Davis and I have both been saying that from the start because you were supposed to make a playoff push. Then you hedged your bets, and it feels like every week it was like, you know what, I actually see a path, or, I need to embrace the future. No, kind of a double-minded man. And like, okay, I'm going this direction, that direction, this direction, that direction.
And then meanwhile, Josh, he's projecting on everybody else. You're in no man's land. What are you doing? You can't commit to a strategy.
Listen, do you guys not know? Do you guys not understand the stages of grief here? It starts with denial. And then I project on other people, and then it progresses from there. And I think I'm at the point of, you know what, I'm in recovery. I can admit this. Now let's move forward. Acceptance, exactly.
Need to embrace 2024 and go.
Josh, so what about you? I mean, there's got to be. I'm just curious because a guy that's in rebuild. I mean, I'm curious as to what is your biggest fear when it comes to rebuild. So talk to us.
No, it's pretty simple, man. Like, I really believe that when you rebuild, you have to have pillars to build around. And the Yacht Club is one where quarterback is king. If you do not have quarterbacks who are top 12 guys, you will not be able to win. So I'm happy that I have Love and Fields, but both those guys are kind of in contract years. And I know you guys have different opinions on them. I trust and love them. My biggest fear, significant injury this season when they need to secure a long-term contract that keeps them, that creates questions about their future. And I almost hate talking about it. It's like I'm knocking on wood right now. At fantasy players, you never want to say, what if they get injured? Because it feels like it happens all the time. Bad beats are out there.
Especially after Kirk Cousins,
dude. And that's a great point to bring up because moving away from kind of our biggest fears, we know Vikings fans talk about the highs and lows of a season, man. Like you go from you're now 4-4. You guys have the easiest part of your schedule coming up. You're about to make a playoff push. Kirk is playing at an MVP level without Jay Jettis. He could maybe come back. And then Kirk Cousins tears his Achilles.
That's sad, man.
Dude, Davis, you were a Jordan Addison owner, and you just sold him this last week before week 9. Week 8 started. So you sold him kind of at peak value because without Kirk, what are the Vikings offensively the rest of the season? Is Jay Jettis coming back? What, in your opinion, is the fallout of this injury, especially for dynasty managers?
Yeah, I mean, for the immediate value and production that you're going to see in league, especially from a redraft standpoint, but even dynasty, because during this time of the year, dynasty turns into redraft. I'm concerned. I mean, there's some buzz, there's some words going on in the Twitter sphere or the X sphere. I'm not sure which one it is nowadays, but there's some words saying that Jameis Winston might be a Viking by tomorrow. Now, if that happens, do I feel great about the people, about the pass catchers on that team? I don't feel great, but I do feel optimistic because we've seen in the past that Jameis Winston, he is erratic with the ball. Sure, he's going to turn it over, but he's also going to turn it over so much that he has to throw them back into the game. So you're going to see 12 to 15
to ever do
Jordan Addison.
30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions in the same season. He's a 30-30 guy.
So if he winds up there, I'm not as worried. Yeah, if they're saying that they're going to go with Jaren Hall, who's a rookie this year, to carry them through the rest of the year, I'm panicking because...
No, I think Nick Mullins is actually the next guy up if he can get back.
He was on injury reserve, I think.
Yeah, and he's going to be back soon. But either one of those guys doesn't
still
inspire confidence. Yeah, Jaren Hall or Nick Mullins.
Well, I actually don't mind Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins has proven to be a more than capable backup. I mean, obviously the ceiling's capped with really anyone but Kirk Cousins, right? Even with Jameis Winston. But I actually like the Jameis Winston call too. So I wouldn't be completely out on Addison personally. If you have him, I would just hold because obviously you're selling it low right now. You sold Davis before the injury.
And to give some context, I mean, I'm in win now, right? And I sold Jordan Addison for Geno Smith to add a bolster and kind of depth to my quarterback league, Superflex. Jordan Addison for Geno Smith and then in Adam Thielen, right? Which doesn't feel sexy, but at the same time, he's going to be scoring me points. But I say all that to say Jordan Addison currently feels like a league winner, right? You don't have Jettas. The question marks are there. Is he going to come back? Yeah. He was feeling like a league winner, and then you lose a Kirk Cousins, like Josh had said. He's playing at an MVP level, and then now you're hearing that Justin Jefferson might be returning because he's actually progressed more than they were expecting. So it seems like a complete flop or a flip-flop from a standpoint of Jordan Addison for me.
Yeah, I don't think – this is complete speculation. I haven't read any reports. But if I'm Justin Jefferson, do I want to come back to a Kirk Cousinless Vikings who are probably not going to make playoffs?
They're still 4-4. They're still 4-4. So until they're out of it, they're not out of it.
But at the same time, Jettas is looking for he's probably going to be the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history coming up very shortly. And so if I'm him, I'm not risking it or diminishing the product I feel I can produce. If it's I've heard Colt McCoy. Does Matt Ryan come out of the booth? Like, I just don't think that there's anyone out there that's going to. I'm just saying, kind of like who's available to come in and make the Vikings even 85% of what Kirk Cousins was.
Kyler Murray, baby.
No, I do think the best case scenario is Nick Mullins or Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I like the Jameis Winston call. The loss of Kirk Cousins, it's kind of like all things being equal. really stinks. But we did see the emergence, or maybe it was just a flash in the pan, Will Levis throwing 4 touchdowns in his debut. How exciting is it when you have, first of all, a rookie who was buried? This is so personal. I hate to say this, but I was looking it up. His girl from draft night literally left him. They split up. My man's was down bad. He came in there.
It's his revenge tour.
It's his revenge tour. And they said that it was going to be a mix of him and Malik Willis. And I will tell you, I love it when a player comes in. It reminded me a lot of Taylor Heineke's debut when he was with the Commanders, who at that time, I believe, were just the Washington football team.
It's a great
and
comp.
played like he had nothing to lose. Like, he chucked the ball deep. He took shots. He's like, listen, I have to come and take this job. I don't need to just play mistake-free football. And finding DeAndre Hopkins, resurrecting his value for the rest of the season, Will Levis was on fire. The question is, here's what I want to phrase for you guys. There have been 3 quarterbacks, including Will Levis, who have thrown 4 touchdowns in their debut. I'm sure you guys know one of them. Do you know the 2 of them? I'll just open it up.
In their debut, rookie debut?
Tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, it's kind of a tale of 2 careers. One is Marcus Mariota. Dylan, I will never forget this. This is the deepest fantasy cut. For one of the first years I was ever playing fantasy and figuring it out, Devontae Freeman, I had drafted him. This was when he was unknown, and this was like 2015, 2016, and he became a thing. Marcus Mariota with the Titans throws 4 touchdowns in his debut, but only 20 pass attempts. I didn't know the difference on looking at advanced metrics. I'm like, oh, Mariota's a great quarterback, threw 4 touchdowns. Obviously goes on to be a bust for his career. The other quarterback is Fran Tarkenton, who is a Hall of Fame quarterback for the Vikings, threw for 342 touchdowns in his career, 47,000 pass yards. I was talking to Mike before the show. I didn't know this. Fran Tarkenton was actually the guy Dan Marino beat out. So for a long time, he was like the GOAT. And if fantasy had been huge like it is now, Fran Tarkenton would have been a dude. So the question is Will Levis going to turn into Fran Tarkenton, or is he going to turn into Marcus Mariota?
Only time will tell, right? I think Will Levis, man, what an interesting story. Because, I mean, as a prospect, the thing that Will Levis was so hyped up for was exactly what he showed in the game this past weekend, was that rocket of an arm. The question was accuracy. Now, when you're launching it downfield and just having your guys run underneath it, there's not much to it. I think where you're going to see Levis, and this is why I'm interested to see if he does start. I think it's Thursday they play, right? They play the Steelers Thursday.
Yeah, against the Steelers. It's going to be fun, man.
That'll be a much more challenging defense to play against. And so I'm not saying Levis isn't going to be a thing, but I would pump the brakes a little bit. He still is a rookie quarterback. They didn't know how to scheme against him. So I'm not. If you have Levis, hold, or I mean, if you can sell high, I guess. But if you play in
high on him immediately,
if you're in a super flex, I mean, I just might as well hold and see,
because
he can be good.
High?
He can be good.
What's selling high though? What's
what are you selling high? I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. That's why I wouldn't sell him.
Yeah, if I had a rookie QB who just threw for 4 touchdowns, I would want to sell high to go get a rookie QB who can throw for 4 touchdowns in the game.
That's what I'm saying. You just don't know what you have in him. So why would you sell him?
If you could get Brock Purdy plus, because Brock Purdy's had a couple tough games. He's got questions about his future. Not doing that.
Here's the thing I would say, you guys. Here's the thing I would say. Wait, you're holding. Whoa.
Wait for Brock Purdy plus. What's the plus? I'm taking Will Levis. If I have Will Levis, I'm holding Will Levis instead of going and trading him for Brock Purdy. Yes.
You're taking Will Levis over Brock Purdy off of one half of a game, basically?
Yes, because I do not believe in the future of Brock Purdy. He's on thin ice. He's a 7th-round draft pick, whereas there's what was Levis, a 3rd-round draft pick? Second-round draft pick.
Yeah, he was the 33rd overall player taken.
Yeah, so basically
to all our listeners, if you have Will Levis, you go find, once again, a Dylan Egloff in your league.
Please do.
You find a Dylan Egloff, and you say, hey, Brock Purdy, 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant. Here's Will Levis.
No, we know how short of a leash that Shanahan has on his quarterbacks.
Davis.
No, I get that because I was a big. Hold up a second, Josh. I was a big proponent of the short leash take. And yes, Josh, I know it feels good because you traded Brock Purdy in another league.
I wasn't going to talk about that.
To say that you would take Will Levis over Brock Purdy after one basically
because I'm following I'm following the talent and the opportunity. Will Levis is a much more talented quarterback than Brock Purdy is. That is point blank period.
I gotta be honest.
It's an idiotic fantasy football
team.
No,
it's not. It's literally.
I love this. I love this disagreement because here's what I'll say. Brock Purdy plus, it depends on the plus. Like if someone is crazy and offering me a 24 first and Brock Purdy, I think the safe play is no matter what, I would do it. But if it's like a 25 first or a second, it's like, okay, what are you re-rolling for? Here's what I will again reiterate.
In what world?
Let me explain. Davis, let me explain. This is all about expectations. Will Levis is shocking your expectations. I'll remind you about Puka Nacua. You were like, bro, Puka Nacua is Travis Fulgham. That's what I love about this. Like, if you think Will Levis is nothing, Thursday, he has a chance to prove you absolutely wrong. Will Levis was scoring touchdowns, throwing the deep ball, showing off the arm strength. That is the most important, not arm strength itself, but arm talent is what makes the quarterback special. That's how you stay a long time in this league. I liked Will Levis's tape coming into college. Coming into the NFL from college, I should say. He had a bad year with Kentucky his senior season. The question I hated was, it seems like the coaching staff hates him, and it doesn't seem like they're committed to him. They're committed to him now. I'm not saying you should trade Brock Purdy for Will Levis straight up. What I am saying is this is as excited as you should be for a rookie QB. Because for him to come in and play with house money and be able to throw the ball like he did. Now, I will also admit to your point, Davis, we've seen this before when – yeah, of course the deep shot was open. Who was scared of the Tennessee Titans passing attack going into an unproven rookie? Yeah. The Steelers will be a lot more prepared, so it's a good litmus test. But I wonder about him, man. The guy, you guys hate the word. He showed a lot of moxie. So I'm excited to see.
I'm interested to see his accuracy. The accuracy is what was a question coming into the NFL, and I don't know that it was.
Threw a lot of balls behind his receivers.
That's what I'm saying.
But, that was caught by D-Hop.
But if you're playing in a Superflex league, I'm just not re-rolling on that. Unless it's worth it for me. You're saying re-rolling.
Okay,
hold up a second, Josh.
Go ahead, Davis.
No, you're saying re-rolling. What do you mean when you say re-rolling?
Dude, Brock Purdy could be benched next week because he messes up again and Sam Darnold, and then you miss he's not as on as long of a leash as you think he is. Yeah. Like he's not safe. Brock Purdy is not safe.
Rolling to Brock Purdy.
Yes. Davis, you hate Jordan Love, right? You think he's terrible? Will Levis or Jordan Love? Will Levis or Jordan Love right now?
Jordan Love, because Jordan Love's a starting quarterback that's solidified for at least a year. Guys, we saw literally in my opinion, one impressive pass from Will Levis where he literally rolled out and threw across his body to Nikhil Alexander Walker. No, sorry.
Keep that because Westbrook Akine is actually hard to remember. He's such a nobody.
No, I was just looking at basketball.
Oh, I thought you totally did that as a joke. That's hilarious.
No, please keep rolling. Keep rolling.
No,
please keep this.
I've gotten Nikhil on my fantasy basketball team.
Nikhil Westbrook Akine.
So that was the impressive, guys. I don't worry, I'm not an idiot. I know football, okay? But I do just want to say that was the only impressive throw. The rest of them, it was like, praying to God, go get a D-Hop. Yes, he has a rocket of an arm. Don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about the intermediate throws that were not 40 to 50 yards down the field, which, hear me, that's impressive. He does have a rocket of an arm. Extremely impressive. But what I do have to say is okay, you want to talk about a short leash. Vrabel has not played this guy the entire season, and he's been sitting behind Ryan Tannehill for a reason. So, yeah, he came out and was like, okay, wow, he threw.
You can't bench him now, though. You can't bench him now.
I'm not saying he will
the rest of the season.
The rest of the season. Okay. All right.
It'll be interesting to see. Those questions are getting answered Thursday. Questions that are going to be answered even quicker. Tomorrow is the trade deadline for the NFL, like we already talked about. Guys, what is one NFL trade for fantasy, and this is a fantasy because we know what's going to happen. Last year, we were spoiled with McCaffrey going to the Niners, like an actual good fantasy situation of a trade. Most likely, nothing good is going to happen. There's been rumors around Derrick Henry. There's been rumors around Davanted Adams. I doubt either of those guys move. I don't know. But what is a hypothetical trade each of you want to see happen? For me, I would love to see Saquon Barkley go to the Packers. I am a Jordan Love owner in many places, specifically the Yacht Club, as I've mentioned many times. He is struggling because they don't have a run game to set up that deep play action pass. Safeties are not scared. They're staying back. They know they throw it deep, and he's become so one-dimensional and inaccurate because of it. On top of that, Saquon is playing for a Giants offense that literally had 7 passing yards this last week. His best years are being wasted. I would love to see him go to a place where his skill set can be utilized, where he actually has an effect on the offense. He can carry an entire offense to playoffs because he did it last year. I'm sorry, Danny Dimes. Look, I'm beginning to believe more and more Danny Dimes is a fraud, Brian Dable is a fraud, and that Saquon Barkley is just that good. Set Saquon free, send him to a team that at least has a chance at contention. And for me, selfishly, it would have to be the Packers. Davis, is there one that comes to mind for you?
For me, I'd love to see Derrick Henry on the Cowboys. I think Derrick Henry still, dude, it's starting to, and granted, if he goes to the Cowboys, he's not really playing in cold weather games because he's going to be in a dome for probably half of the remaining games. But it doesn't really matter. He still is effective. He still is putting up like numbers, but he has to get the carries that I think we've seen, and we're all three Cowboy fans. Tony Pollard is not producing what you're expecting between the tackles, so I think he's missing a Derrick Henry or a Zeke type of player, right? So Derrick Henry back to the not back to the Cowboys, but Derrick Henry to the Cowboys would be something to me that, as a person that has Derrick Henry, I would be in love if that were to happen. But I mean,
I would also.
I'm hearing reports that Shefty's saying that they're not going to trade him because they don't want to lose all of their ticket sales for the remainder of the year.
They should just do right by Derrick and trade him because they're not going to the playoffs. Derrick's not getting any younger. Like if they were.
No, but guys, they have Will Levis. So, I mean, they're prime. Guys,
I did not say, listen, I did not say he was going to win a ton of games. I just said that he's
better than Brock Purdy for sure. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So
you're so dramatic. Anyways, I like the Derrick Henry call. Yeah, for me, it's one of the ones that we've kind of all been hoping would happen since the offseason. And it's, oh God, I'm setting myself up. D-Hop to Kansas City. I want to see D-Hop in Kansas City because Kansas City is floundering right now. They do not have any other option outside of Kelsey. And to me, I don't know if you guys watched I see Davis smirking over there. I don't know if you guys have watched. Listen.
With Will Levis than Pat Mahomes. I mean, at this rate, you got Will Levis.
Oh my gosh, I literally can't make a take. Listen, we'll address that later. But I don't know if you guys watched the Denver and Kansas City game. But did you guys see Travis Kelce? Does Travis Kelce look like he may be losing his step a little bit? I'm a little worried.
I would say this. One, Taylor Swift isn't there. There's actually a lot of splits talking about when she's there, when she's not. It's real. I mean, fantasy football is all about identifying trends.
That's an advanced metric right there for you guys.
Very similar to like the Saquon thing where it's like, okay, the safeties are playing down in the box. If you're playing Kansas City, just cover Travis Kelce. Double cover Travis Kelce. Put a decent corner on Rashee Rice and make Sky Moore beat you. Make Kadarius Toney beat you. Newsflash, neither of those guys are going to beat anyone for the rest of forever. That offense needs another dimension. I will say, I do think that game was more the Patrick Mahomes flu game and not like the Jordan flu game where it was bad. But
I mean, it just feels that the offense is one-dimensional.
It's stagnant. Kelce finds zones, and if everyone just collapses on him in the zone because no one else is a deep threat that you're actually worried about, it's really problematic. Davis, I see you nodding your head. You got a thought on that?
Yeah, I just have a question for you guys. Which one is a hotter take? Will Levis over Brock Purdy or Travis Kelce's lost a step after coming off a 12 for 179 and a touchdown?
I was saying in this game. He looked slower.
Okay, got it. Okay, because I think he had 32 fantasy points.
Davis gets very upset if you insult people that are on his team.
Don't come after my team.
No, Davis, the hottest take ever is probably Bryce Young finishes with 4,000 yards passing in his rookie season.
Hey, we're getting there, baby. We're getting there. They got their first win of the
lucky
season.
If he eclipses 2,500. No,
I love it.
Going back to my D-Hop, I think D-Hop will, if he could get to Kansas City, I think that would be night and day for that offense. It opens up Rashee Rice deep. It opens up Travis Kelce because Travis Kelce and D-Hop play similar in the sense of they find zones. Now they do it differently, but I think they could have both of those guys on opposite ends of the field. Rashee Rice spreading the field, Mecole Hardman. I just think that would be great for the offense and for D-Hop because I mean, we know he's a target monster. So that would be my dream scenario if I have D-Hop. I'm hoping that he ends his career. Again, if the Titans would do any service to their older guys and just trade them to give them an opportunity to compete for a ship, I could see that move going down. But we'll see.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Dylan, I want you to keep the ball real quick. In honor of trade deadline, what's a trade you're trying to get done in Yacht Club right now? I'm assuming it's for 24 firsts and you're having no luck, but please.
Yes, no, 24 firsts that's a long shot. So a trade that I've actually been looking to make, and I did it. I tried to do it before this week, and it's for Jonathan Mingo, actually. I want to go and get Jonathan Mingo. I thought it would be sneaky to kind of get him because he's been so quiet. We saw the Panthers offense was struggling before this week, which, yes, it's the Texans, but I mean, Bryce to your point is Bryce did look a little better this week. He looked much better, much more comfortable. Adam Thielen led the team in targets, but right behind him was Jonathan Mingo. And I think you're going to start to see as the season goes on, Jonathan Mingo is going to start to get some of those targets. And he made, like he did in college, those contested catches, the good catches downfield that are going to bail his quarterback out. So that's one of the guys that I'm looking to go and get. I know it's one of those smaller transactions, but I mean, Davis, what do you think? You haven't really been high on Jonathan Mingo per se, but what do you think about after the game?
He looked solid in the last game, but something I do want to ask, because I know the context of our league that the listeners don't. The people that have Jonathan Mingo on their team are nearly unworkable, impossible to do a trade with.
Let me tell you guys.
Explain to me what that process looks like.
Let me tell you guys. So I'm so glad you prompted that. So this man, they have two people. It's a co-owner. These dudes. So I go and approach them.
Co-owner. Yeah, it's
very active.
The two of them together.
Two active. Both of them are way too active. So I send them an offer, just a feeler offer. I was like, let me send their second, because they have an early second, right? Right now it's projected to be an early second because they're one of the lower teams. I was like, let me send an early second, right? Nope, denied immediately within like 5 minutes. What do they counter with? I have at the time I had 5 seconds. I have 4 seconds now, and all 4 are looking like they're going to be pretty high. They responded with 3 of my seconds, 3 of the early seconds for Jonathan Mingo. And at that point, dealing with those managers, I'm like, you know what? I didn't even respond. I just rejected it. It's not even worth. I'm not even going to come to the table because, like you said, they are literally nearly impossible to get a deal with. Impossible.
There's certain owners you won't go through the horse and pony show with, of like counter, because if you just know it's going to be one of those deals that it's going to require an arm and a leg to get anything done, you don't want to waste your time. Davis, is there a trade you've been unsuccessful with, you've been trying to get done not before the NFL trade deadline, even though we have a much later deadline?
Yeah. Well, no, and I just briefly want to finish out that thought. It's kind of like what Mike said, I think the last episode that I was on, so 2 episodes ago, where he said, he doesn't try and approach people with a deal that he doesn't think they'll want to accept. But we have a lot of people in our league, and sometimes people call me as one of them, as it's like, dude, why would I do that deal? Can you at least consider me and consider my feelings at all? Yes. But no, so for me, Dylan, this does involve you. And I'm sure as I start to kind of unwind this, you'll understand what I'm saying. There's a player who's a 28-year-old running back. His name's Alvin Kamara, who is going nuclear in that offense. It's like Derek Carr cannot support anybody else but him and the occasional Rashid Shaheed for a 50-yard catch.
Just 3 passes. No, only 3 passes.
Only three passes. Chris Olave will get 12 targets, but will get about a 5 for 60. And you're just pissed off as he's missing a touchdown off the top of his helmet.
Rashid Shaheed had 150 yards on 3 receptions.
On 3 catches. No, I know. It literally is 50-yard bombs only. Yeah. Only or Kamara. So, no, I tried trading for Kamara before he returned. I went to you, Dylan, and we were back and forth. And, Dylan, I remember you were like, dude, because I wanted Jacoby Myers from you and I wanted Kamara for a 25 first. And you gave me the whole 25. No. And this is before Jacoby really blew up. He had one good game, and it was like, okay, I'm buying into the potential. But you were like, dude, just give me the 25 first for Alvin Kamara, and then we can call it a day. I was like, nah, man, I'm sorry. He's 28. Ooh. And then I just remembered. I was reminded by him as he came back, and he's put up back-to-back nearly 20-point games. He is a clear RB1 the rest of the season just because of volume and because of the skill that he has, regardless of his age. And so I regret not doing that. I tried sending to an owner in our league who has Kamara now, and he denied it quickly. I then sent Damian Pearson at 25 first, denied quickly. So at that point, it then becomes like, all right, it's impossible to get Alvin Kamara on my team. And do I regret it? Yeah, for sure I do. Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah. It's speaking to Dylan's, he spoke to his fear earlier, talking about mistiming trades. Dylan traded Kamara away before he came back. And so, he sold the
guys.
He's made the right moves at the wrong time.
Let me explain. So let me give more context.
There's nothing to explain.
This is why I'm in such a grieving cycle. I traded away in one offseason. I cannot believe I'm saying this live. Christian McCaffrey, Travis Etienne, and Alvin Kamara. I literally watched those guys
would be like the number
why did you bring that up?
After
people
a week.
Are like,
because
people are like,
listen,
right now,
it wasn't all at once. because everyone that plays fantasy should know there's different contexts to different situations. Obviously, if I knew they were going to be what they are today, I would not have done that. Christian McCaffrey, sure, that one is a little bit more, but we've already talked about that trade. Alvin Kamara, had no idea what he was going to look like. Travis Etienne, I mean, thought he was going to be good. I got good value for Travis Etienne. So you just never know. It's just, but it is painful week to week watching them go off. It's painful,
especially for a team that could have made a playoff push, and now that's looking like
you guys love to just kick me when I'm down. You guys love it. Love it.
I don't think it's hard to, you're laying on the floor. I'm just trying to walk up the stairs. It is what
it's so you just kick me a couple times before you step over.
Player I've been trying to trade for. Listen, football better than of the three of us. I would say on the field football the best. Timing your trades is something we're trying to grow on you, and we're just trying to steal some film analysis. Guy I'm trying to trade for, Chig Okonkwo. I do believe in Will Levis. I think he elevates that offense. Chig Okonkwo is kind of a late sleeper because he was someone everyone was hyped about in the offseason on a lot of advanced metrics, yards per target, fantasy points per target. And I think that the guy who owns him, I know that he owns Mark Andrews. So I was like, hey, maybe I'll go give him a Jake Ferguson and a little extra something, or vice versa. Give him someone that's a better, for sure, guaranteed backup for his playoff push. Let me take the upside of a Chig Okonkwo in case he does hit. Because if Will Levis is a guy, Chig Okonkwo becomes very, very valuable. They're both 24 years old. So unfortunately, that owner is very hard to get a hold of.
Wow. I probably would have done Jake Ferguson straight up.
Smashed that, yeah. Did you guys see that great ball that Chig dropped? That probably would have been like a touchdown or like a 40-yard gain.
Yeah, he's getting used to He's getting used to Will Levis's ball speed. The guy throws a lot of heaters. So, I just want to take the upside. I mean, Jake Ferguson is great. I'm not winning a championship with him. I can hold him for a couple years, but it's like, hey, I got to swing for the fences. That's a cheap way to do it. Really quickly, getting away from our own teams, just opening up the floor because we do want to give advice. And Dylan, I'm sorry for dogging on you so much. I do trust your analysis on the field, so I am going to be listening intently. I'm just not going to be listening to the price you're charging. But what's a player you guys are that everyone should be looking to acquire in dynasty leagues in general, not just for your team, not just for your championship window or your rebuilding, and who's someone you should be trading away just unequivocally? Trade deadline's coming up. Keeping with the theme. What are trades that we're making? Davis, self-proclaimed value king, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Changing that mantra this year. Who you got?
Yeah, no, and it's always the groomsman, never the groom. Thank you very much. But what I would want to say is I'm looking to acquire T. Higgins. And I know it does not feel sexy, but there was a point in time within the last year that T. Higgins was valued as a wide receiver one in dynasty football. Yes, he is still attached to one of the best quarterbacks in the league in a resurging offense. But that's not why I'm saying to go buy him. I'm saying to go buy him because he's priced right now as wide receiver 21 in Keep Trade Cut, right above Nico Collins and George Pickens. And Josh, I know you love George Pickens, and Dylan, I know you love Nico Collins. Our guys. But right by our guys. Above your guys. Absolutely not. There's a clear talent gap, in my opinion, and a clear situation gap, in my opinion, from those two guys. But at the same exact time, I think you're seeing a guy who's 24, turning 25 by the end of the year, or by at least like next season. So he's going to be 25 years old. He's probably not going to get another contract from them. I don't think we see him getting traded anytime soon because they're trying to compete. But you're looking at a guy who's going to be a wide receiver one wherever he goes next. It wouldn't surprise me if he's tied to a Bryce Young or if he's brought to somewhere else that they're in desperate need for like a wide receiver one.
You're saying at the end of the season, they're not going to trade him this year.
No, I don't see them trading him this year.
Got it.
Or no, yeah. I mean, just because he's going to be coming up to a contract situation, and I don't think that they're going to have the money to pay him where they'll start to believe in a Tyler Boyd and a Andre Iosivas because they still have to pay Jamar Chase. And so we talk about Justin Jefferson earlier in the episode being the highest paid like wide receiver. He's going to set the market for Jamar Chase to then get paid because they're one and the same. So I don't think we see T. Higgins on this team long term. So you're looking at a guy who's going to be the wide receiver one. I say all that. I know this is long-winded, but he's priced as wide receiver 21. I'm looking to go buy that because no, Josh, I'm curious. What are your thoughts?
Kenny Golladay is the answer. Kenny Golladay. And I'm not saying that T. Higgins is Kenny Golladay, but there's this belief that he's going to go be the wide receiver one. I don't think T. Higgins is more talented than George Pickens, certainly, and I could make an argument for Nico Collins. If anything, I would say T. Higgins has underperformed within a great situation. I think it performs to this, like, wide receiver 17 is his best yearly finish. He's never gotten higher than that. And it's not like Joe Burrow isn't throwing for almost 40 touchdowns every year. He threw 38 last year. So it's not that I don't like T. Higgins. I think he's a very good player, but I think very good and great are two different things. And if he goes to the wrong situation to chase a bag of money, and that's really my point, Kenny Golladay is as much a victim of the Giants as the Giants are a victim of Kenny Golladay, in my opinion. I think our eyes didn't deceive us when he was with the Lions. I don't think our eyes are deceiving us when he's with the Bengals. He can make great plays. But if he were to wind up, gosh, like, I'm trying to think of the worst landing spot. Might be the Giants, actually. Like, if he went to the Giants, are you really excited for his fantasy future? That's my one, like,
if he goes, yeah, sure. I want him to go to the Panthers. I think him alongside of Bryce Young would be fantasy gold.
That would be nice.
And would bring to fruition the 4,000 yards that I envisioned for Bryce. And so it would make things all come full circle. But I do want to close out my final thought. The person that I'm looking to trade away, and Dylan, Josh, don't go crazy on this, but I think I'm ready to move on from Puka Nacua. I'm ready to sell. I'm finally ready to sell. And I know that's going to sound contradictory. I know that's going to sound crazy, but you have to move as the markets move. And guys, he's priced as wide receiver 9 in keep trade cut. He's right above Chris Olave. And I'm not saying this just because of like Matt Stafford. I'm saying because it's like, all right, look, you've sat at the casino table for a good amount of time now. You've continued to win. You've continued to hit. At one point or another, you have to count yourself lucky and be like, you know what?
Cash out.
I've hit to the maximum that I've got. I need to cash out. So, guys, he's wide receiver 9, and in most leagues, you probably paid a third or a fourth for him in like the rookie draft. So, yeah, it's crazy.
9?
So, wide receiver 9 in keep trade cut above Chris Olave. So, yeah, guys, at this point, Josh,
put names to that for me. What are you trading him away for? What can you get in return?
Bro, anyone from 15 to 9. I don't care.
Well, look, no, Josh. If he's wide receiver 9 and DK Metcalf is wide receiver 18, I'll take DK Metcalf in a first for Puka Nacua in a heartbeat. That if we want to name names, that's where I'm just like, look, I have rode that wave as long as I can. I'm not saying he's not a talented wide receiver, and yes, losing Stafford maybe for an IR stint of 4 weeks still. Like, do I think Puka can still be productive? Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he has made Cooper Kupp seem like, okay, Cooper might be human just because Puka's going to demand targets. But I'm saying at the price of where he's at, okay, it's ran the course being on my team. At this point, you're a wide receiver 1 solidified, a top 10 wide receiver in dynasty pricing. I'm looking to sell. I'm looking to get 2+ firsts for him.
What's crazy is you're technically selling low because of the Stafford news, right? But you're still selling high because of how overvalued that he is. Even though Stafford's out, you're still selling high on Puka Nacua. That's so. I'll let you go, Josh, because I know you have opinions. I'm 100%, as you can see, on board with that, and I'm selling Puka for whatever I can get.
Any trade can be a win. You know, trading away any player can be the right move depending on what you get in return. So I save room for you're not going to. If you sell Puka, you're going to get a haul. I agree with that. But also, is the person buying Puka aware of what you just said, Dylan? It's like, okay, is Stafford going to be back? Like, who are you selling it to? A rebuilding team? The other thing I would say is, yeah, DK Metcalf in a first depends on the first. Like, if it's DK Metcalf and Caleb Williams, guys, we have to remember Puka Nacua is currently having
you're not getting DK Metcalf and Caleb Williams. DK Metcalf and Keon Coleman, DK Metcalf and Xavier Leggett, DK Metcalf and any 24 first.
This just feels like you guys don't like the prospect athletically, and so you're ignoring a half a season of. No. I'm just saying, like, you're saying you like Puka, but you're saying wide receiver 9 is incorrect. He's had the best so far 8 weeks a rookie wide receiver can possibly have. He's setting records. Full stop. He's been better than Jamar Chase in his limited work, fantasy points wise. Like, he's made Cooper Kupp. He's out-targeted. His target share has increased since Cooper Kupp came back.
Bro, I'm going to be honest. I'm taking any 24 wide receiver that is going to go in the first round next year. So you're talking about Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, Malik Neighbors, any of those guys over Puka Nacua. Straight up.
See, Dylan just hijacked my statement.
Yeah, you don't have a 24 first to do that.
Don't put that on me. Yeah, don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that evil on me.
That's so foolish because what he has shown on the field is that he is a great player. Matthew Stafford has made him more fantasy relevant than maybe another quarterback would, but it all depends on the reroll. So I actually don't disagree, Davis, in terms of maybe the time is right depending on where you're at. But if you want to keep Puka, I don't think you're going to go wrong whatsoever. I do think his value, keep trade cut wise, is going to go down. On that, we do agree. Dylan, I know we have strong opinions. We do got to move on. I want to know from you, who are you trading for? Who are you trading away?
Yes, I'll keep it brief and brilliant because that's my thing, right? The guy that I'm going to make a move for, and hear me out. It's kind of not rebuilding move. Maybe if you're rebuilding, whatever, depends on how far off you are from competing. Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, I will say, has kind of flown under the radar, right? And he had all this buzz coming in. He was in the top 5 RBs before he had that injury last year, right? Everyone's saying, oh, it's him, Najee in the draft class, and then it's him and Breece and Najee at the top, and then Javonte goes and gets hurt, and then now we've just seen him just completely tank. I'm going to pull up the keep trade cut and where he's ranked, but you've seen in the last 2 weeks his workload has continued to increase. In this past week, he had over 20 carries. He carried the bulk of the carries, or he had the bulk of the carries, and both
27.
weeks
he had 27.
He had 30 touches total. 30 touches
total.
He was the bell cow, and they beat the Chiefs from
yes,
it. So
in the last 2 games, he had 80 yards. So 80 yards on the ground is going to be just fine. And this week, he added a touchdown through the air. So last week, he had 11 points, I think, and then this week, he had 17 points. That is more than serviceable. And what you're seeing is Javonte, and if you watch the games, his injury is slowly fading away. And he's only 23 years old. So the fact that he went through that gruesome injury, people are just comparing him to J.K. Dobbins because of the injury similarities.
He healed like Wolverine.
He healed obviously way quicker and way better. And obviously anyone's prone to injury. But the only thing that got J.K. Dobbins was looking better. The only thing that slowed him down was he tore his Achilles, right? Yeah. So you can never project injury, but you can always prepare for it. So yes, that's a risk, but that's a risk with every player. So the guy that I'm going to get is Javonte Williams. I think you can probably get him at somewhat of a premium. I mean, running backs, you don't have to ever really pay a significant amount for running backs, but Javonte Williams, if you're in a rebuild, depending on how far you are from competing.
If you had Kamara and you were rebuilding and Javonte owner had was looking to win now, that would be one that would make sense to me. Is that something?
I would do that.
Beautiful swap.
Yeah, that was yes, exactly. That was a perfect swap. Absolutely.
Young backs they're not that many either. It feels like they're all 25 or at that age. He's one of the few ones that's south of 25, along with Gibbs and Bijan. That's fantasy relevant. That's going to be kind of an RB1. Who are you looking to trade away though, Dylan? Because I don't think Davis and I would disagree. I'm actually like, okay, I want to go buy Javonte Williams right now.
Javonte Williams, real quick, RB16. He's behind Isaiah Pacheco, Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard.
Isaiah Pacheco?
Bro,
Pollard?
Any of those guys, I would trade straight up for Javonte Williams because I can guarantee you as we go throughout the season and even into the offseason, Javonte Williams stock, he's going to be a top 10 RB next year. He's going to be a top 10 RB next year. So if you can get him now,
if I had Josh Jacobs, I would trade Josh Jacobs. You'd get Javonte Williams.
Dude, Tony Pollard's the first one on that list that I saw. Tony Pollard's all the way up at RB11 still. Like
Pacheco, if you're saying Pacheco's RB15.
Yes.
Yeah. Who's your? You just gave us a couple, but who's your trade away candidate? Because all through, I'm like, I'd get all those guys.
I'm actually going to hop over and I'm going to, bring up a player that I've kind of been critical of, and that's Calvin Ridley. I'm going to sell Calvin Ridley. He's coming off of a decent game, not a great game. It was a terrible, terrible circumstance with the game in Pittsburgh, right? They was like down. It's pouring and they couldn't throw the ball to save their lives. It was just terrible conditions. So yes, but Calvin really still found a way to produce, and he was the wide receiver 1 on that team for the week. Trade him. Get rid of him, the wide receiver 1. It is still Christian Kirk's team, and whenever the conditions are good and it's nice and sunny, guess who's getting the ball? It is Christian Kirk because
it's all based on the weather, ladies and gentlemen.
This was a Christian Kirk
in a roundabout way. It absolutely was. Yeah. Calvin Ridley's a fraud. He is an absolute fraud. As a wide receiver, you guys came on here and told me, Davis Nuemi came on here and told me, Calvin Ridley's going to be a wide receiver 1. At what point does he turn this season around and become a wide receiver 1 the rest of the season?
Wait a minute. A couple weeks back, I acknowledged that Christian Kirk
was
their wide receiver 1. Oh, okay.
You did.
See, guys? I'm a victim once again. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you for proving me right.
All I'm saying is the second that Calvin Ridley has this spike, it was like I was saying about George Pickens. The second these types of players have spikes, flip them for what you can get. George Pickens is younger, so I can understand the justification. Calvin Ridley, he's not tied to the Jaguars. And he's not young. He's almost a 30-year-old wide receiver.
He doesn't have a long-term contract.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he doesn't have a contract. He's 30 years old. He can end up in a better position.
28 years old. He's 28 years old.
If you round up, what does that go to? 30.
You know what this is?
That sounds like some
this wasn't a take.
Like Davis math.
This wasn't a take. This was Dylan coming on and just being like, Christian Kirk was my roommate in high school or in college. We are best friends, and I will not like.
This
oh,
is like.
Lord.
Anyway, sell Calvin Ridley. That is all I have to say. Sell him. For Christian Kirk.
I respect the fact that you love Christian Kirk as much as you do. I don't even, there's nothing to talk about there because we've had this debate all year. A player I'm looking to acquire. I wanted to go a little bit deeper. And I don't usually like going for guys on offenses that in general I don't like. But Demario Douglas is a screaming value. In fact, you may not, and I love that it's acquire, not trade for, because in many dynasty leagues, I think he's on your waivers. And Demario Douglas, rookie wide receiver for the New England Patriots, is someone you should do a fab dump on. He is the wide receiver 76 in scoring. So no one is going to pull up in fantasy and be like, this guy's valuable if he's on their team. Over the last 2 weeks, though, his snap percentages have skyrocketed. He went from like 13 in the previous week to 2 weeks ago, he was at 62. And then this last week, he was at 77% on his snap percentage. In those 2 weeks where he was at 60 and 70 with his snap percentage, he saw 6 and 7 targets apiece. He has looked good on the field. And perhaps most importantly, Kendrick Bourne, who I love and I have in Cartel, which I mentioned earlier, the league I was competing in, and then I fall apart. Kendrick Bourne just tore his ACL. He's the wide receiver one, or was the wide receiver one in New England, so his targets have to go somewhere. On top of that, Devontae Parker is in concussion protocol. This is a Josh Walsh fix and flip. Go get Demario Douglas any way you can. Let him flash for 2 or 3 games. And if you don't believe in the Patriots offense or you're concerned about his future, because Bill Belichick will find a lacrosse player to come in and play slot and replace him in 3 weeks, just have him for 2 weeks and then trade him away for a second. I promise you it'll work. Or maybe, if you'd like to, you can keep him long term. So the reason
why I like that so much is because Demario Douglas is exactly who Wes Welker and all these slot guys that they've had in the past have been, right? He's that small slot fit. He's not one of them white boys, right? He's just, he's out there chocolate. So he's out there running the same exact routes it's the same exact usage. People just don't want to say, oh, he's Wes Welker because of that comparison, right? But I think he's going to get the same exact usage. And if they can get back to that offense of like having someone who can run the underneath crossers and absolutely. Juju.
Yeah. Juju guys though was 1 for 3 with a touchdown. Come on, guys.
Goodness
gracious. He was 1 for 3 with a touchdown.
No, I love that Walsh. That's a good one. I like Demario Douglas.
And his KTC, so this is where you play the trade calculator and play it well because I think he's going to skyrocket in value. He's at wide receiver 77 in keep trade cut. So he's 76 in scoring. He's 77 on KTC. This is people just paying attention to an offense no one else is looking at because no one's looking at the New England offense going, wait, who's going to be the pass catcher?
Yeah, check your
Demario
waivers.
Douglas. Yeah, he'll probably shoot up to the mid 40s, if not 30s, if he has a good game, and you can sell him right away. Speaking of someone I'm selling on, guys, my trade away candidate in honor of the trade deadline is Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is a very talented receiver. This is not me. In fact, in terms of talent, I believe he's better than T. Higgins, and I would say he's at least tied with George Pickens, who I'm obsessed with. Brandon Ayuk is an unbelievable. Here's what I say tied, because only George Pickens and I think Brandon Ayuk are wide receivers who can hurdle 2 people to get into the end zone
on their lone catch of the day.
Yeah, that's fine. It was raining. You heard Dylan talk about it. We'll talk about it Thursday. But Brandon Ayuk is wide receiver 15 on keep trade cut. Here's the problem. That is his ceiling with the San Francisco 49ers. He is the second best option in that offense, and I mean that from a Christian McCaffrey standpoint, okay? Deebo Samuel obviously is going to get his. George Kittle has his games. I think Brandon Ayuk is the best wide receiver on the team, but Deebo is tied up with a long-term contract. Christian McCaffrey has a decent contract. They're obviously not going to get rid of him anytime soon, and George Kittle is tied up long-term. Brandon Ayuk is the only guy that doesn't have a long-term contract, and here's my other point. Last year, he had the highest finish for fantasy he ever had. He finished at wide receiver 15, at least in our scoring. He did so on 114 targets last year. Guys, do you know what he's on pace for this year?
114.
Tell me.
110. And the other
1,500 yards.
Yes. It's
okay, the yardage is up, but the touchdowns are down. He had 8 touchdowns last season. He's only on pace for 4 this season.
Touchdowns can change on a dime.
But Are you kidding me? With Christian McCaffrey in the offense, breaking the record for most consecutive touchdowns? Is Brock Purdy throwing for 3 every single week? I'm not saying he's a bad player. Hear me. I'm not, just like Davis's take with Puka. The only reason I can somewhat agree with it is if a guy's at his ceiling, also,
Sure.
I'll say this. Age-wise, as soon as a wide receiver hits 26, I don't know about you guys, there's this trick in my mind where it's like he's in his prime or he's kind of old. 25 and below, wide receivers still feel developmental. The moment they go over 25, they start to feel like, okay, they're at the cliff. They're in their prime, or they're going to decline in the next 2 to 3 years.
I still can't believe that you said he's like at least tied with George Pickens. That's where I'm caught up on right now.
George Pickens, you're probably right. You're probably right. George Pickens is more talented. I agree. But Brandon Ayuk's a great receiver. All the same. Is there any thoughts you guys have? I know you guys both love Ayuk. I just think that he's too high priced on keep trade cut right now. Wide receiver 15. I would much rather trade back to someone who has more upside because this is his ceiling.
Here's what I'll say to that. I do actually agree that with the team that he's on and the mouths that they have to feed, his upside is extremely limited. I think, though, Brandon Ayuk probably might be the odd man out when it comes to getting paid long term. So we might see him being on another team and absolutely going nuclear, because I think Brandon Ayuk is a top 7 wide receiver in the league.
Yes.
And all the advanced metrics say
top 5 route runner easily.
Dude, he's
great.
Unbelievable when it comes to route running. But yes, Josh, your point is extremely valid. I don't think wide receiver 15 is as high of a floor. Yeah, his floor is extremely safe, especially the yards per his targets and the yards per catch extremely high. So he's going to be getting you that floor. But you're extremely right. I mean, if you're looking for him to be your wide receiver 1, I'm not going to be banking.
No, not wide receiver 1. But I mean, if you can flip Puka into a Brandon Ayuk plus, absolutely. Like that to me would be something that I would do. But like,
that's not bad. That's a good price. I think that's roster construction dependent in my opinion. But
I don't know anyone that would actually do that though. Like, do you think many people
older.
are? Yeah, but
you're getting older trading away for Puka.
I don't know very many people that would do that.
I would just borrow this. The other reason I would do it, I agree, Davis, completely. I think he does have to go to a different team. But just like I said with T. Higgins, there are destinations that could be super detrimental. We would all like Bijan to be in a different destination than the Falcons.
Jeez.
I do think though, if Brandon Ayuk goes to a situation, I do think he may be somewhat situation proof with a safe floor. That's what I'll say. And so, like, as a wide receiver,
man,
he's really good.
You don't understand.
There's no player
who's been throwing the ball to him. Who's been throwing the ball to him? He did what you said last season with what?
With Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy's good. Okay.
Last season, he started off the season with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's all I'm saying is he started off the season with Jimmy Garoppolo. Sure, Brock Purdy towards the end of the season, but he's doing it with quarterbacks like, yes, Brock Purdy's a good quarterback, but it's not.
Kyle Shanahan's system is elite, and it's still a top scoring offense.
Yeah, I just think he will forever have a safe floor as like a wide receiver too. And I will buy into that.
I will transition us with this. We're going to take a quick break and then jump below deck, even though you've already gotten quite a bit of it. People want to know, really, we owe this to our wives. How are we managing our marriages being this much of fantasy fanatics on this spooky Halloween episode? No player is situation proof. I'll leave you with that. You know, one of the scariest things, keeping with the theme of scary and trades and whatnot, is how much more doing this show has taken from my life, and not in a bad way. I was already a dynasty degenerate, like we've talked about, but I have cranked the volume up to 11. Now, anytime I am watching football, I get to tell the wife, hey, I'm working. But Dylan, you asked a great question on the Matthew Berry show about, hey, how do you find that balance? And he had some great tips for us. It made me realize, I'm glad all 3 of us are back together. I do not have the correct balance. This last week, this is so relevant because I was literally just like, my wife and I just chatted about this. She's like, babe, like, why are you in such a bad mood? Like, I feel like our whole day is ruined. It was Sunday. And I play in a league, in a redraft league. I was playing against Davis's team in this redraft league, and I am the team that is scoring like 120 plus. Like, I'm always in the top 5, top 3 for scoring, and I keep losing to the number 1 or the number 2 scorer on the week, and it affected my whole day. And I had to apologize to my wife. I'm like, babe, I'm sorry. I'm just really competitive. Like, and she's like, it just controls too much of your mood. I'm like, I don't know that it can change, babe. I don't know. Like, I don't think there's ever a way for me to do a podcast, talk about sports, play this much fantasy, and it not have this much emotional effect on me. Tonight was even worse. I already talked about it. Jimmy G freaking crapped the bed. Lewis's like, oh, yay, I love the Lions. It's good to see them do good. They sacked Jimmy G. I'm like, no.
Like, hey, what the heck?
So bad, dude. I have no idea. It's definitely a nuanced game balancing it. Davis, have you had similar problems, or have you found the right, you have Davis and you have David. You compartmentalize these two sides to yourself. Are you able to give a good side to your wife and just turn it off when you need to be husband?
No, I absolutely have not.
That was the case.
I literally will walk out the room and be like, babe, I'm going to go take a call from Mike. Or, babe, I'm going to go talk to Dylan or Josh. No, it's just that time of the year. But here's the funny thing is I bring my wife alongside me and she gets some insider. Like, I'll take the calls in front of her at times too. The biggest thing that she gives me and the biggest feedback that she gives me or pushback is like, anytime I lose. So she found out that I lost tonight in like the yacht club and she was pissed. She was like, wait, you lost and you're putting all this time in? And I'm like, babe, what do you expect from me? Am I supposed to be perfect? Like, I'm 7-1. And she's like, yeah, but I just wasn't expecting you to lose. I'm like, all right, you know what? I need to look in the mirror and I need to be like, all right, what more do I need to do? So maybe that's the justification for me to further invest into fantasy football and Dynasty.
Time out. Did you just do what I think you did? One, I mean, it sounds like I know you already married her. She's a keeper. But did you just weaponize your wife and be like, guys, I'm going to be calling and be this much more neurotic in yacht club, this much more
as Mike has said,
because my wife needs me to.
And he's used her. I've heard you've used her to leverage trades. Is that correct?
As Mike has said, she's joined in some trade calls before. Gosh. She's joined in and she's, given her smooth talk of, well, Mike, I think you should do this deal. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
That is brilliant.
She's a very sweet, yes, it basically is. So, no, guys, I have not found a balance yet. I'm thinking about if I win a championship in the yacht club, I'm taking a sabbatical for me to really focus on more important things.
It'll be a great 2 days for us.
A good, more like 2 hours. But yeah, yes. Dylan, how about you? Are you in the same boat as us?
I'm going to make it a trifecta. I have not found the balance at all. But one thing I will say is I'm going to leverage. Last offseason, we had this big debacle over if we should take a break or not. In the yacht club, should we take a break for the season? And I was like, no. This year, I will be the first to advocate for that break because I have not found that balance. And just with the podcast and with everything that we have going on with fantasy, my wife had to sit me down and pull me aside and be like, hey, look, I love you, support you. I want you to do this fantasy thing because I know you enjoy it and you love football. But you're only doing 6 leagues. That's the amount of leagues that you can do.
I want to tell this story. I just remembered this because the big one for me in terms of the boundaries is like, I don't even compete that much. It's always the commissioner stuff. She's like, wait, why are you dealing with this? Like, why are you going through like a rule change? Like, didn't you guys have she's like, you made a document so people know the rules. Why are we having rule discussions? There was an off-season voted in last year. This is such a great story.
I don't recall anything that you're talking about.
Of course you don't. Yeah, no, David does. David doesn't recall. Here's what happened.
I don't know where this is going.
No. So we had just gotten the expansion draft done, okay? And it was like a huge deal. Everyone was already like exhausted. In the rules, there's an off season after the Super Bowl is played. And it's like a month of time it's like 2 weeks after the Super Bowl starts. There's a month of time where everything shuts down, no trades happen, and we rethink any rule changes we want to make. And the voting for rule changes. During the season, I believe that you shouldn't make changes that are going to affect long term. So I've always said you need like a majority vote. During an off-season change, we turned it down to, I think, 10 out of 12 people had to vote to make an in-season rule change. Davis, who's mad at me at the time, like subtweets me, he's like, really horrible that the commissioner is shutting the league down because we had 2 new teams, right, during the expansion. And so everyone was excited to get all these trades done, Mike as well. And I was like, guys, we can change the rule and keep it going through the NFL offseason. We can get rid of the month offseason and open the league back up. But it's got to be a majority vote, like a massive majority vote. So we said like 12 out of 14 owners or something like that. Mm-hmm. Davis was like the one that started it. But Dylan, you were the one that was like, you know what? I'll make this an official vote. And so can you tell exactly, Dylan, you set up the vote, but it didn't pass at the last second.
Didn't.
And why did that happen?
It didn't. So after days of campaigning, calling, texting other owners in the league to say, hey, I need you guys to vote. I'm going to post this vote. Please vote if you guys want it to go. I needed one more vote. And right when
you had the votes. You had all the votes.
I did have all the votes. Oh yeah, you're right. I did. I had all the votes, and I put in our chat. I was like, Josh, I have all the votes. We're good. Literally out of nowhere, David comes in and says, you know what? A break sounds kind of nice. Flipped his vote last second, flipped his vote, and I was short one vote, and then we had to completely take a break, and I was irritated. But I had been lobbying right next to Davis. We had been lobbying together, calling people, texting people, trying to rally.
Davis put you up to it. It was Davis's idea, and then he was like, someone make it a poll, and Dylan, you're like, you know what? I'm going to make it official.
That's why you just don't make a deal with the devil. That's why you just don't do it.
And then the last second before the votes were counted.
David is the devil. David is the devil.
I rebuke that. Okay, in Jesus' name, amen. All right, jeez Louise.
No, but I do want to say one thing about boundaries, because I don't think I gave myself enough credit. I do have boundaries, and I think you guys can attest to this. Mike has brought it up in the past, and Mike, I was literally talking to him last week about a deal that I referenced on last episode that we didn't get done on Wednesday night, but we got done Thursday night, and that was because I take date night seriously. Listen, my wife is gracious enough to allow me to play this game and take calls. Like you guys, I take calls all the time. She hears your guys' voice, Mike's voice. She's like, okay, I know it's fantasy. If she hears me talking loud and she's like, it sounds like a business deal, but it's just trade negotiations, which is a business deal. But when it comes to Wednesdays at 4 p.m., you best believe that I am not returning any calls. I'm not doing it. And you guys can attest to this. I seriously guard my date nights. And Mike literally called me last Wednesday at 3 o'clock and was like, hey, bro, I know you got date night tonight, but I want to trying to get this deal done. I was like, listen, we can talk about it. It ended up not getting done Thursday morning. I called him on my way into work. We got the deal done, and it was good. But I guard my date nights, and I protect those wholeheartedly. And you guys can attest to that, right?
Sounds like an emotionally healthy man. And
am I lying?
Proud of you.
Thank you, guys. You know what? Thank you, guys.
Well, I hope everyone listening enjoys this on a Tuesday. And if you have date night on a Wednesday, great night to do date night. Make sure that you shut off your phone and just don't listen to our podcast on date night. Pick it up immediately afterward. This has been the Dynasty Exchange. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. We'll see you Thursday.